Hello everybody, it's Fufu here and I'm back with my friend John aka PokeMEN for our Why We Need series for Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Today we will be considering adding back a function to these games, which is bringing back gyms to the Alola region. So this is going to be an interesting one, but there's also going to be a video on John's channel. What is your video going to be about, John?
I'm going to be going over why we need to bring back Pokemon walking behind you in Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. It's a feature people have been talking about for a long time, ever since they dropped it after Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I think it's pretty interesting, but I'm also very excited for this topic.
That's going to be great, so make sure that you go over to John's channel straight after this video, but right now we'll concentrate on gyms.
What we want is actually really simple. We just want to see Pokemon gyms in Alola. We did get trials in Pokemon Sun and Moon, and while they were pretty cool, I think a lot of fans would just love to see gyms come back. And really it could be simple, just replace the trials, bring back the gyms, and everyone will be happy.
So why might this happen? Well, there are a number of reasons which I will get into right now. First and foremost, this is a much loved and characteristic feature of the entire series. It is characteristic of the main game Pokemon games, and in Pokemon Sun and Moon, we decided to move away from that towards Pokemon Trials. Now, this was an interesting move, and a lot of people thought it was good and refreshing, while at the same time, quite a lot of people disliked the Trials and thought that Pokemon Gyms were a much better way of progressing through the game. Personally, I did quite like the change, but I did think that Pokemon Gyms would be a nice structured way, instead of maybe Kahuna battles, having the Pokemon Gyms there as your way to battle the people to get the Z Crystals maybe, and also gym badges to progress through. I thought the trials were quite well implemented though, but I will discuss those in a bit more detail in a second. So we also see that in Alola, a Pokemon League has just been built, and earning gym badges to play against the league is another characteristic thing of the main series Pokemon games. And this isn't something we see in Alola because they don't have gyms currently. However, it would make sense that now they have a league to be able to go against that league when it gets a bit more of an audience and more people know about it. Maybe they'll have lots of applicants. They will need to implement gyms so that you can get the gym badges, so that they know that they're only getting the best to play against the league. So maybe because they've only just got the league now, that's why they haven't got gyms, and we are going to see the progression to having gyms in the Alola region. We also see pointers in the games. Now, we see construction sites dotted around the entirety of Alola, and a lot of people speculated that this could well be future gym sites. It could be that they are going to be built, and especially now that we've seen that the one building site we had before, which was the Pokemon League, that was built while we were playing the game, we could potentially theorize that these are gyms being built in preparation for those to be used for graduation into the Pokemon League. And actually, recently, we've got a little bit more information about this, because up till now, it was just speculation that these construction sites were related to gyms. However, in a recent Game Informer magazine, there was more information to say that island trials were an afterthought in the game, and that Pokemon gyms were potentially going to be implemented in Pokemon Sun and Moon. However, because of resources or because of lack of time, these were not able to be fully implemented. They were removed from the game, and actually trials were used instead. So, and that's some more evidence that we've got there. Now, how do we know about this? Well, the trials, they all use functions that are already implemented in the game. There is nothing new in the trial challenges. For example, what I'm talking about is the rats that jump at you from the little holes in the cave. You see them all over Alola in caves in general, so they're not a new feature that they had to implement for the trial. They were already there in the game. The same as bubbling spots that you have to surf to in the water trial. They're there when you fish into them, and also the ones that come and attack you as well. You see the Mimikyu trial, you have to take photos of things. There are photo spots dotted around everywhere. So basically what I'm trying to say is the trials added no new features. They were there, they used features that were already there because they are quick and easy to implement in these trials. And what actually was going to happen were potentially gyms were going to be used. So we could see in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon these gyms that are no longer in the games that could now be in the games. So that's just a little bit more evidence to point towards gyms maybe being in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. They had considered them for Pokemon Sun and Moon, but they were removed.
When it comes to how it could happen, I think it could be pretty simple. They already have construction sites that were supposed to be gyms, so all I have to do is put a gym on the construction sites. There you go, there's the gym. They've had a lot more time to make it happen, and it would be pretty cool. To make sure that there was enough gyms, they could just do 2 gyms per island, as that would be a nice little flow. I mean, if they wanted to have one island only have 1 gym, the other one have 3, I'm pretty sure they have trials that are kind of like that. That could also work, but the 2 would just work perfectly, in my opinion. And also, it would be really awesome to see them implement new puzzles. Maybe the thing I dislike the most about trials is some of the puzzles were just, they were kind of goofy. It wasn't really fun. They weren't difficult. There just wasn't really much of a point to it. But if you go through a ton of different Pokemon games, there are so many gyms that are both really cool and also decently difficult. You know, I have a lot of fun, like some of the ghost gyms where you can't really see where you're going on the psychic ones and you fall off the path, or you're going into an invisible wall, or the water ice one where you have to walk across and make the right puzzle, and if you go on the same spot twice, you'll fall through the ice and have to do it all over again, or just go against a bunch of trainers. Those were really cool, and just implementing that would be really, really great. And then, you know, after you get all of the badges, then you can face the league to simple, you know, Pokemon formula we've all come to know and love. And obviously, it was cool to have a little bit of a change, but I mean, Pokemon's worked for so long for a lot of different reasons, and gyms were never a problem. It would be really awesome to see gyms make a return in Pokemon Sun and Moon. It would be awesome just to see how they would work in the Alola region. Obviously, we've never seen it, and I think there is a lot of cool things that could happen. We could see, you know, progression with different characters in this world now being gym leaders. We could see Nanu as the first Dark-type gym leader, which would be really, really awesome to see, and I would love to go against that. I also could give a little bit more structure to the Kahuna battles as well, and I feel like the game would just flow a little bit better. You know, the trials, they made some sense, but I don't know, I just didn't have the structure and the flow that I'm used to in a Pokemon game, and what wasn't necessarily bad, I think it might be a little bit better, at least in my opinion, to have the gyms there as you go across the different islands. It would be really nice to have like an objective. You get to the island, we have these 2 gyms, and then we can move on. You know, we're trying to get the different Z crystals, get the badges, so we can get to the league matches. And I think that would be pretty awesome, you know, having these gyms in different locations that we saw the trials in. It would be really cool to go into the jungle and see what the gym would be like, or go on top of a volcano and see how that gym would be like. I think there's a lot they could do with it, and I'm excited for them to possibly make a return.
And I would be really excited for new puzzles as well. John talked about some really cool ones that we can all remember, and it's just some of the most iconic experiences in the series come from these puzzles, like searching the trash cans in Lieutenant Surge's gym to find the switches is just such a great mental image that will stick with me, or walking into the walls in the invisible walls in Koga's poison gym. I remember it all, and I think that they really add a lot of flavor and context and depth to the game. So I would really love to see new puzzles that frustrate you and you have to spend time working them out. I think that would be awesome. And I'd quite like trials to still be a thing. What I did appreciate about the island trials and also the Kahuna battles is you sort of have a Pokemon directed element to it, where you've got Pokemon as the boss rather than people, and then you've got the Kahunas, which are the people side of things. So I would quite like it if maybe the gyms replaced the Kahuna battles, because then you'd still have the Pokemon-based trials and then the people-based trainer battles, which I thought worked really well. And then if we had both, we could then compare the difficulties and see how strong those trial battles are and how strong those trial Pokemon are. I think that would be a really cool way to see how these games have evolved, and we can now have Pokemon being the bosses themselves. So moving on to the scoring, we have to consider how likely this will be. And personally, I think this is probably the most likely thing we've talked about on this series so far, looking at the evidence, because we talked about the construction sites, and actually, before we even knew that Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon was going to be a thing, people were speculating about these construction sites. People were saying these could well be sites for gyms. That's a theory that has been around for a very long time. And then when Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon is announced, and now with this new information that gyms were already considered for the first for Sun and Moon, we could really quite easily expect them to be in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. It probably wouldn't be too much work to do, wouldn't be too much work to add them in. So I actually think this is going to be really likely, and I would maybe even be surprised if it didn't happen, or that there wouldn't be at least a nod to it. Now that we've got the Pokemon League, Pokemon gyms would be the logical next step. So I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 for how likely we think this is, based off the information that we have so far.
When it comes to how cool this would be, it honestly wouldn't be the coolest new feature, because it wouldn't really be adding much. It would more be subtracting something and then adding something on top of it. I mean, if we do keep trials and then maybe change the kahunas to the gyms, like Sam was talking, some sort of mix like that, that could be really cool. But just in general, the whole idea of bringing gyms back, while it would be pretty awesome to some, it probably, you know, some people do like the trials more. A nice middle ground score is a 5 out of 10. And I think that fits perfectly for this. Still decently cool, but definitely not the coolest thing we've talked about.
So with a 9 and a 5, we get 14 out of 20, which comes to a 7 out of 10 overall. So that's a decent score. 7 out of 10 is a pretty good score. It's not the highest we've seen, but just because we think that it's going to be quite likely, it does get quite a high score there. So that's going to be all on my channel for today, but as I said, please go over to John's channel where we discuss Pokemon following you in the Pokemon world, walking right behind you and following you, interacting with everyone. That would be so cool. So go and check his video out. We go and discuss that in detail over there. Give him some love, like the video, just to give us that support on this series. But that's going to be all for today. I've been foofootoo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.